Here we have a drilled asymmetrical ball in which I found the bowler's positive axis point. Again, we're using the standard positive axis point of 5 over by 3/8 up. That's standard because that's where the ball throwers' axis points are when they use normal amounts of rotation and tilt. Okay, so I've got this ball here that's drilled a certain way. I can measure the existing layout on this ball if I want. But I want to use this ball to say I'm creating a companion ball to this, and I want a different layout on the companion ball. Okay? So the first thing I want to do when I want to drill a new ball is simulate the VAL angle I want to use on the new ball. And we're going to stick with our standard strong layout, and we're going to go 20 degrees to the VAL. If I put the pin on that line, it is going to be 20 degrees to the VAL, which creates the strongest break point. I know some people will say, well, how about if I use less? Once you start using less than 20 degrees to the VAL, you may find out that the drill ball is going to flare up over the bottom of the thumb. So I recommend you stay with a minimum of 20 degrees to the VAL. Now we got to pick a pin to Pap distance, second most important spec. And if I want to get it to get the sharpest change of direction and max flare, I'm going to use 3.5 inches. Okay, let me mark that for you as 3.5. So if I put the pin right there on the ball I'm going to drill, it's going to be 3.5 inches from the PAP, 20 degrees to the VAL. If I had a little bit of hand and a little bit of axis rotation, I'm actually going to look for a little more control and do an all-around layout at 4.5 inches. So if I put the pin here, I'm going to get my maximum flare. If I've got some rotation and tilt and I got some hand, I'm probably more than likely going to use this 4.5 position on most of my balls. So I don't want to try to max everything, because sometimes when you try to max it and the lane goes wet dry on you, you have a hard time hitting the pocket. But 20 degrees of VAL, 3.5 if you want to get max reaction, 4.5 if you want to get just a hair more control to control the break point. So on the ASIM, on a symmetrical ball at this point, we just draw the line from the PAP through the thumb to determine the drilling angle. Let me just do that, say, hey, I'm going to try to get a symmetrical reaction out of this. So I would do this. If it was 3.5, I would do that. If it was 4.5, I would do that. Okay? 3.5, 20 degrees. Here's my drilling angle. If I choose to go 4.5, 20 degrees, this is my drilling angle. They look pretty close, but they are slightly different. Let's measure them. The drilling angle on the strong layout is 70 degrees. The drilling angle on the all-purpose layout, to get that same look, but the all-purpose look, would be 65 degrees. So actually there's 5 degrees difference in these two angles. So with this ball, for a more all-purpose layout, I've got 65 by 4.5 by 20. If I want a sharper break point, I've got 70 by 3.5 by 20. So there's two different layouts. Since this is an asymmetrical ball, let's talk about the locator pin location, the PSA. On asymmetrical balls, when you move the PSA around, you get a different shape to the break point. If the PSA is in the thumb, which means if this white dot was actually laid out over there, I'm going to get the sharpest break point. If I want a medium break point, I am going to measure and split the difference between the VAL, vertical axis line, and the thumb. That's 1 3/4. That's right here. So if I put the PSA right there, I'm going to get my medium reaction. If I put my PSA over here, I'm going to get my strongest reaction. This is the advantage on asymmetrical balls. You can change the shape of the breakpoint by moving the PSA around. If I want my smoothest reaction with that same amount of hook, I will put the PSA on the VAL. So I've got 1, 2, 3 different PSA locations. They define the shape of the breakpoint. This is going to define the amount of flare and a little bit on the shape, add a little bit to shape. So there we're looking at it. Okay, let's say I choose my 4.5 pin to PAP. Okay, let's see what I would have for drilling angles when I move the PSA around. Okay, we know the last two numbers are 4.5 by 20. I would use this drilling angle if I wanted a medium reaction, and this drilling angle if I wanted the most forward roll. Hey, we got a little time. Let's figure out what those drilling angles are. Let's look at this one. The smallest one is 15 degrees. The medium one is 25 degrees. And the bigger one is 50 degrees. Let me check that. 15, my mistake. 15 degrees for the smoothest reaction, 40 degrees for the medium reaction, and 65 degrees for the strongest reaction. So if this angle is 65 degrees, the ball's going to give me a sharp break point. If this one is 50 degrees, I'm going to get a medium break point. And if this is 15 degrees, I'm going to get the most forward roll. So what we've done is we've taken an existing ball that we measured the PAP on, and then we said, okay, here's where my layouts could be. Strong, medium, forward roll, max flare, more medium flare. There you go.